So very good morning students. Let's start with today's session. In the first session, I had briefed you about the course, about the theory course and the laboratory course, and I have guided you how we are going to conduct this particular course using Microsoft Teams platform. And further, I also added you that what will be the mode of conduct, how we will be conducting ISC for the theory course and how we will be conducting ISC for the lab course also. We have also seen that prerequisite for this particular course is in the form of C programming language, and wherever it is required that few concepts of C are to be revised, we will make sure that before we start with that concept of data structure, we are revising those concepts of C in our lectures, so that will be easy for you people to understand the concepts of data structures. Today we are going to start with our first unit of our curriculum, that is basics of data structures. And before we start with the basics of data structures, let us understand that from our programming language, that is C, we should be comfortable enough in the concepts of array, function, structures and pointers. These four units which you have studied in your first year of engineering are very important when it comes to data structures. I again repeat, concepts of array, then functions, then structures and pointers. So these few concepts will be quickly revising in this first week or along with the topics of data structures, so that it will be easy for you to understand the new topics in the data structures. So let me start the screen sharing from my end so that we can start with our lecture. Just give me a second. So I'm sharing a screen from my end. I have shared my white screen, so I hope it is visible at your end. So we have quickly seen the concept of array in the last lecture, if you remember, right? So array is basically collection of homogeneous elements, as I stated. Okay, so it is collection of homogeneous elements. Array is collection of homogeneous elements. And when I say the elements are homogeneous means they are similar. So they are similar in terms of their data types. So say for example, they all might be integer, or they all might be floating point numbers, or they all might be character numbers. So if I have say five numeric values, then I can go for their collection in the form of an array. And their application also should be same. Say for example, I have five numbers and all five are roll numbers, then it makes sense to make an array of these five elements. But suppose I have five numbers, out of which one is a roll number, another is a mark, and another is a weight value, another is a height value, right? So all the applications of these numbers are different, and if the applications are different, even if their data type is same, we don't go for making of an array. So in that case, we prefer using structure in that case, because their application is different, right? So what is array? Again, to quickly revise, array is collection of homogeneous elements. Okay, and homogeneity is basically in terms of the data type, and also in terms of the application on which you are going to apply that particular collection. Now this array, as I told you, can be of multiple types. It can be one dimensional array, or it can be multi-dimensional array. Okay, so array can be one dimensional array, or it can be multi-dimensional array. So we are going to use these arrays a lot of time while working with different programs. Okay, and in the last lecture, I had helped you to recall the indexing scheme for one dimensional array and also for the multi-dimensional array. So if I have a one dimensional array, the indexing goes from 0 to n minus 1 for an array of size n. Similarly, if I have a multi-dimensional array, the indexing will go from say 0 0 to n minus 1 n minus 1. Okay, so how we declare this array? So we will be having the data type of that array, followed by the name of that array, whatever name I give, and followed by the size. Okay, so if I am having a one dimensional array, I will have only a single size. So for example, if I have an integer array, say for example int, and I have integer array a of say size 5, so I'll be declaring it as int a of 5. And suppose I have a two dimensional array, say for that matter, so in that case I'll be declaring it as int b of 5 5. So this is how I declare a two dimensional array. Okay, So we have seen these declarations, and we have also seen how these particular elements are stored in our memory by using the indexing scheme in the last lecture. Today we are going to focus more about the two-dimensional array, that is multi-dimensional array, with help of certain example. Okay, so let us quickly go through an example. You must have studied matrix program in your first year, right? So let us quickly revise what that matrix was. So matrix basically is a two-dimensional array in which your data is stored in the form of rows and columns. Okay, so one of the dimension of your multi-dimensional array will be for rows, and another dimension will be for your columns. Okay, so I'll quickly just share a program screen in front of you so that we can learn that particular concept. Just a second, I'm sharing the program screen in front of you. All are advised to keep your mic on mute mode so that it will not create a disturbance while the lecture is going on. If you have any doubts, feel free to type it on the chat box. So I'm sharing my desktop once again so that we can learn the logic now. So I hope the desktop is visible. Okay. So suppose we want to have a two-dimensional array for our matrix. Okay. So for a two-dimensional array in the form of our matrix, we first say include our standard input output header file for our C program. Okay. And further, we start our program by writing main function as usual. So this is our main function. And now I am declaring one two-dimensional array for my first matrix in the size 3 by 3. Suppose my first matrix is of size 3 by 3. And suppose my second matrix is also of size 3 by 3, for which I wish to do the say for example addition. I wish to do an addition of two-dimensional array. So in order to access these two matrices, we make use of two reference variables, that is I and j, because we all know that for accessing the array we require a nested for loop, and for this for loop again we'll require a variable for its initialization and writing condition. So I use those two for loops variables as I and j. I'm going to store my result in another two-dimensional array, so I call that two-dimensional array for my result as C. So initially we'll start with our program by collecting the input. So we'll give a message to our user that enter elements of the first matrix. So we are asking our user to enter the element for the first matrix. This elements in the first matrix can be collected with help of a nested for loop, as I suggested, right? So we are writing the nested for loop I is equal to 0, then I less than n, I plus plus. Okay, inside that we are writing j is equal to 0, j less than n. In our case now n value is 3 because we have declared matrix of size 3, so we can simply write it in the form of 3, j less than 3 and j plus plus, and inside that I am going to scan the element now. Okay, one by one. So percentage d I am scanning because it is an integer value and the access specifier for integer value is percentage d. So we are scanning the element for the first matrix, that is a of ij. First we are scanning the element for the first matrix, that is a of ij. So I hope all of you can see this particular for loop on your window right now, which is present, which is this one, right? So this is the for loop for taking input of first matrix. Okay, I is equal to 0, I less than 3. So initially value of I will be 0, value of j will be 0. So the first element that I will read will be 0 0. Then the next element that I'll read will be 0 1 because j will be incremented, right? The next element that I'll read will be 0 2 because again j will be incremented. Then again we will increment j, but the condition of j will fail because 3 will not be less than 3. Then we will go to outer loop. Then value of I will become 1 and the next element that will be scanning will be 1 0. Then we'll scan again 1 1. Then we'll scan 1 2 and so on. We'll progress to scan 2 0, 2 2 and 2 1 and 2 2 finally. So this is how all the elements will be scanned for our first matrix. Now similarly we are also going to scan the elements for second matrix. So I'll just copy this particular logic of scanning the elements and I'll just replace this first with the second matrix now, and this second matrix will be scanned in terms of b of ij. This second matrix will be scanned in terms of B of ij. All of you are able to see my screen properly? Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so all of you can see the second matrix logic on your screen. Yeah, so I is equal to 0, I less than 3, I plus plus, j is equal to 0, j less than 3, j plus. So we have read both the matrices in the form of A and B. Now further we want to go for the addition. Now how addition will take place? So how we do matrix addition? If you recollect the logic of matrix, so if I have two matrices, suppose this is my first matrix and this is my second matrix, right? So these are my 3 by 3 matrices. So these are three positions of my first matrix, all the 3 by 3 positions, and these are my second matrices positions, 3 by 3 matrix. So this is my matrix A, this is my matrix B, and we wish to calculate our matrix C, which is our resultant matrix, which is this one, third one. So we wish to calculate this first answer. What is this answer? This answer is C of 0, 0. So what will be C of 0, 0? C of 0, 0 will be basically A of 0, 0 plus B of 0, 0. This is how we do in the matrix multiplication also when we do in mathematics, right? So what is C of 0, 0? It is A of 0, 0 plus B of 0, 0. What is C of 0, 1? C of 0, 1 is A of 0, 1 plus B of 0, 1, right? What is C of 0, 1? It is A of 0, 1 means this field and B of 0, 1 and this field. Correct. Likewise, we will keep on continuing till the last field, right? C of 2, 2. What will be C of 2, 2? C of 2, 2 will be A of 2, 2 plus B of 2, 2. So basically we are writing a statement like this. If we closely observe what statement we write in our logic, C of say 0, 0 is equal to A of 0, 0 plus B of 0, 0. What is C of 0, 1? It is A of 0, 1 plus B of 0, 1. What is C of 0, 2? It is A of 0, 2 plus B of 0, 2. And we keep on doing this for all the 9 steps, right? All the cells till the last one. What is last one? C of 2, 2 is equal to A of 2, 2 plus B of 2, 2. So if we closely observe these instructions look very similar, right? C of something something is equal to A of something something plus B of something something. So what is that something something that is getting changed? Those are our indices, right? So first I have index for my row, which is coming out to be 0, 0, 0. Then it will be 1, 1, 1, and then it will be 2, 2, 2. And further inside that I have indices for my columns in the form of 0, 1, 2, then again 0, 1, 2, and then again 0, 1, 2. So it is of the similar pattern of my nested for loop, right? So if I write a nested for loop again for performing addition, I will be able to do all the additions with help of a single statement, right? So my I will be going from 0 to 3, that is I is equal to 0, I less than 3, I plus plus, and j will also go from 0 till 3, that is j is equal to 0, j less than 3, j plus plus, and inside that we are going to perform addition by writing C of ij is equal to A of ij plus B of ij. So let us quickly write down the logic of addition. So here our addition logic begins, right? So how we write that addition logic? In the nested for loop. So I is equal to 0, then I less than 3, I plus plus. Inside that we have j is equal to 0, j less than 3, j plus plus, and that we are going to add, right? So C of ij will be equal to A of ij plus B of ij, correct? So initially C of 0, 0 will be A of 0, 0 plus B of 0, 0. then j will be incremented. So c of 0 1 will be calculated, then c of 0 2 will be calculated, and so on, all the values till c of 2 2 will be calculated. So further we can print this result also, right? So for printing this result, I'll make use of the similar for loop again for printing the result. So I'll go back here for performing the printing, and instead of just scanf, I'm writing the printf result. Okay, and what I'll print is, I'll print now C, because C is my final answer, because C is my final answer which I have to print, correct? And I'm printing it in the form of a matrix. So every new row I want to print it on a new line. Okay, so I'm writing a new line for every row, and every element, after printing every element, I am printing a tab here so that it will look like a matrix as far as my final answer is concerned. So let us quickly save this logic and try to compile and execute this, so as to understand how the matrix multiplication executes. So I'm compiling this and I'm executing this, and I'm giving some sample numbers quickly for the first matrix and for the second matrix also. These are few sample numbers that I have provided, and the final result also. Let me check if I can increase the font size so it will be visible for all of you people. The output shall be visible in that case. So this is how it looks. I have taken the first matrix as input. Okay, then I have taken second matrix as input, and then it is displaying me the final result in the form of a matrix, right? So this is how we do a matrix addition. Similarly, we can go for matrix subtraction also, we can go for matrix multiplication logic also. I'll make another video maybe in due course of time for matrix multiplication, and I'll share with you, so it will be revising your concept of array, right? So this particular 15 minutes we have spared in just recalling the basics of array. I hope you have already studied in first year, I understand, but this was for few people who are not able to recall it, right? So we have seen how we can use a two-dimensional array in the form of a matrix example, right? So the next thing that we are going to continue today in the form of revision will be the second concept of C that we are going to revise today, that is function. Okay, what is we are going to revise now next is we are going to revise concept of function. What is function? Function is basically a collection of statements which we do basically to solve a particular logic. Say sometimes what happens, we are working on a project, say for example, and in that project there are different sub parts. Okay, so there is one small part of collecting requirements, there is some small part of collecting another requirements, there is another sub part of performing some logic number one, there is another sub part of performing say logic number two. So instead of writing all the program or the entire program inside one main function, what we can do is we can arrange our program in a systematic manner by writing functions. So each of the functions will be responsible for executing a particular task. प्रत्येक function ला we are going to give a particular task, and that task will be solved by that particular function, right? So function is basically collection of these statements. Okay, it is basically collection of statements which we do for performing a particular task. Okay, now in order to understand function, we should know that function can be of two types. It can be system defined functions, okay, and second, the functions can be user defined functions. There are two types of functions, that is system defined functions and user defined functions. Now system defined functions means such functions which are already available in your system, already available with your programming language. One example I can give you is your main function, right? So main is something, a default function from where the execution of our C program begins, right? Inside that we only write our logic, but the functionality of main is predefined. There are also some predefined functions that we usually use, uh, like the printf function or scanf function. Am I audible? I got a message from one of the students that I'm not audible. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are clearly audible.
Yeah. So if someone is not able to hear, there might be certain connectivity issues at your end. Try to figure it out. because others are audible, others are able to hear me properly. Correct? Can anyone else also tell me if I'm audible properly?
Yes,
Am
sir.
I? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, students. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Okay. So there are two types of functions, that is system defined functions and user defined functions. I was telling you about system defined functions. So system defined functions are functions which are already available in your C programming language, like your main function. So main function, you write the inside body, but the functionality of main, that from there the execution of program should begin. This is predefined inside the C programming, right? Similarly, we use functions like printf and scanf, right? So the logic of printf and logic of scanf is already written for you people, and we only use those functions. So these functions are basically called as system defined functions. But we also have some functions which are user defined functions. So what are user defined functions? So user defined functions are such functions which you people will write, right? So the user will write those functions. So we are going to write those functions to solve some part of our logic, right? And in order to write these user defined functions, we have to follow certain steps. Okay, so what are those steps? Let us quickly see those steps. So steps for writing user defined functions, what we are going to see, we are going to see steps for writing user defined functions. So there are basically three I would say parts, or three mandatory things which we need to follow while writing any user defined function. So the first part is declaration of our user defined function. What is the first part? Declaration of user defined function. What is second part? The function body or body of function. Okay, so the actual logic of our function. And third part will be calling of function. So what are the three major items as far as user defined function programs are concerned? The first part is declaration of user defined function. The second part is body of the function, and the third part is calling of the function. Okay, now let us quickly try to write one simple logic of a user defined function. Suppose I want to do addition of two numbers. Let us take a very simple example, addition of two numbers. Now usually when we do addition of two numbers, we can easily do it in a main function, right? We can easily write that in main function. But the objective of this particular logic is not to write or not to do addition, rather to learn user defined function. So we are going to do addition of two numbers, but not directly inside our main function, but we are going to create a new user defined function for this. Let us call that user defined function as add function. Okay, and I'll be calling that function as add function, and this add function is going to do addition of two numbers. So these two numbers I will take in the form of a and b, and the answer that I'll calculate for this particular addition function will also give me result in the form of integer, because the input are integer, then output will also be an integer, right? So this is how I declare my function, right? So the syntax which you can see right now on your screen is for, this is for declaration of function. This syntax is for declaration of function. So what this syntax indicates? This indicates, the first part indicates the return type, the second part indicates the name of function. Okay, and inside bracket we write the parameters, and then we provide a semicolon. So as far as our example is concerned, int becomes our return type. So this is something we are going to return as an answer from our function. Add becomes the name of function, so it is our given name. So whatever naming conventions we have for variables, same we have as the naming conventions for our function name also. So we can give our own name in this case, and inside the bracket we are going to provide the parameters, right? So parameters again are of two types. We are going to dig those types later on when actually we'll write the program. So here in our example we have two parameters. So these parameters which I have written right now are termed as formal parameters, right? So which basically we use while declaring the function. Okay, so I have two parameters which are for my two input values, that is a and b. The second part will be our function body, and third part will be our calling of function. So let us quickly move to the program. So I'll move to a new program in order to understand the addition function logic. Okay, so here I am now including the input output header file, and I'm writing the main function. This is something which is going to happen with each and every program in our programming language, right? So I'm writing that part first. Then we are declaring, I told you there is one function declaration, right? So what is the function that we are going to declare now? Integer add, integer a and integer b. So this is my function declaration. Okay, what is this? This is my function declaration. This is my function declaration. Now inside the main function, I am taking two values in the form of x and y, because I need to take these two values as input from my user. Okay, so I'm asking my user to enter two elements. Okay, and these two elements I am scanning in the form of x and y, right? So I'm scanning x and I'm scanning y. Okay, I'm scanning x and I'm scanning y. And finally I am going to get my result in the form of z, which I am going to get from the function. So I am going to write function body for this later on. Okay, so for that, now I need to write my function body first before I actually do the calculation. So I'm writing my function body here. So this is my second step, that is integer a and integer b. What is the body? Here I'm calculating some answer. So I'm calculating that answer in the form of, say, c. What is that c? That c is some addition of a and b, and I'm going to return this as my answer, right? So the data type of this and the data type of this return type should match. Okay, c is of which data type? C is of integer data type, right? So this int and this int should match. If it is not matching, then this program won't compile for you people, right? Now I'm calling this function, right? What this was my second step, right? What is this? This is my function body. This is my function body. And finally I have to use this function. So for using this function, I need to follow my third step, that is I need to call this particular function. So I'm going to call this function now from my main function. Okay, from where I'm going to call? I'm going to call this particular function from my main function, right? So I'm going to call this by writing I'm going to call function add with the two values x and y, with the two values x and y. So whatever values I'll scan here in the form of x and y, these two values will be passed. So these are my actual parameters. What are these x and y here now? These x and y are my actual parameters. These are my actual values on which I want to execute. So I call these as my actual parameter. So these actual parameters are passed to my function, and these actual parameters are caught inside my formal parameters whenever I do a function call. So a and b, for that matter, in this particular program are my formal parameters, whereas x and y are my actual parameters, right? So x gets copied into a and y gets copied into b whenever I do this function call. And then we go inside that add, and their actual logic of addition takes place for a, in the form of a and b, and the value c gets returned, and this returned value is now further caught into z. And now if I print the value z, it will give me the addition of my two numbers x and y, right? So this addition I'll print, this addition answer I'll print, that will be in the form of z. Okay, so let us quickly compile this. Let us write this, save this program, and quickly try to compile this. I forgot a semicolon. Okay, so let us quickly try to compile this logic and execute this logic. So it is asking me for the two elements. So I give those two elements in the form of, say, 7 and 9. It gives me result as 16. So how this execution took place basically? So initially my program starts from my main function. Initially my program starts from my main function. So from main function, I take two input values in the form of x and y. What are those x and y? 7 and 9. Then I call the function, right? So for this particular calling, what is my caller function? My caller function is main. Caller is the function who is giving the call. Who is giving the call? Main is giving the call. And another is callee function. Callee function means the function to whom you are giving the call. So from main we are giving call to add function, right? So the caller function is main function and the callee function is add function, right? So once I take the two values x and y as an input in the form of 7 and 9, I do a function call, that is add, and this values, that is x and y, are getting passed from my actual parameters to the formal parameters a and b, right? And then inside the add function, my execution begins, where actually the addition takes place in the form of a, b and c. The result is calculated into c, and this result is returned in the form of return c, which is further caught by the variable z inside my main function. Are you getting this? And that is what we are printing in the form of 16 in the main function. So for any user defined function program, we need to have these three things in our mind. What is the first thing? Again, I repeat, what is the first thing? First thing is function declaration, right? In which we will give the prototype of our function, right? So what is the return type, what is the name of function, what are their parameters, all this information related to that function will be given in the function declaration. The second part is the actual body of my function, right? So I need to write that logic inside that with help of formal parameters. And the third step will be calling of function. So where I am doing calling of function in my program, I am doing it here. I'm just adding a comment here to understand. So this is calling of function over here. This is calling of function over here. Are you getting this? Okay, so z is equal to add x comma y. This step is my third step, which I noted for you people, that is calling the function. That is calling the function. So here we have seen one sample function call. So likewise, we can have many such functions, right? So I can have, say, more than one user defined function also in my program. So from function number 1, I am giving call to function number 2. Then from function number 2, I am giving call to function number 3. So I can have any hierarchy for that matter. I can have any hierarchy for that matter. So I have given just one function call. So I can have main function. So suppose this is my main function. Okay. So inside the main, this is logic of my main function. From my main function, I can give call to another function. So this is my function number 1. Suppose this is my function number 1. So inside this function number 1, while I am writing the logic, I can give call to function number 2. I can give call to function number 2. Then I can give call to function number 3. What I want to show from you this example is you can write as many as user defined function. It is not that one program can have only one user defined function. So I can have multiple user defined functions in my program, right? So how the execution will begin? Execution will begin from main only. So from main you will start executing the statements one by one. So this statement will be executing, then this statement will be executing. So whenever the function call will happen, here there will be a pause. Here there will be a pause, and the jump will go from this statement to function 1 where the call will go. Then this function starts its execution. The first statement here executes, second statement here executes. Then again you are doing a function call here, right? So here there will be a pause. Here there will be a pause. Again the flow will go to function number 2. Then all the statements of function number 2 will be executed. Suppose this is the last statement of my function number 2. So from here the flow will come back to the statement from where your call had begun. So it will come back to this statement. Then the remaining statements of your function number 1 will execute. When your function number 1 will finish its execution, then call will come back to the statement from where the call for function number 1 had happened. And then remaining statements of your main function will execute, and from here your program execution will stop. Are you getting this? So we can have many user defined functions in our program. We can have as many as we want. Now there is another concept that we have in functions itself, which is very important for data structures, that is recursion. Okay, what is recursion? Let us quickly discuss the concept of recursion now. Okay, what is recursion? Recursion is a phenomenon of function itself. Okay, now we have seen that we can give calls to multiple functions. But say for example, if we have a phenomenon like this, that I am writing a function call. Suppose from main. Okay, suppose I am having a main function here. Okay, so from this main function statements, suppose I am giving call to a function called as a. Suppose I have a function called as a. Okay, so inside this statements of a, suppose inside this statements of a, I am calling again a. In the earlier example, what I told, that from main I am giving call to function 1, and from here I was giving call to say function 2. So they were two different functions, right? But now what is happening in this particular example is, in the body of A, I am giving call to A. Okay, observe this particular part. In the body of A, I am giving call to A. So this is something function calling itself. What this is, what is this basically? What is this phenomena? Function calling itself. What is this phenomenon? This is function calling itself. A is calling itself. Inside the body of A, I am calling A. Are you getting this? So this phenomenon is called as recursion. And the function A here is called as recursive function. And the function A here is called as recursive function. Now see how the flow will begin. Flow will begin from main. First statement of main will be executed. Then second statement of main will be executed. Then call will go to A. Now in A, first statement will be executed. Second statement is executed. Third is executed. Now here call of A will come again. So here another call of A will begin. And the first call of A will pause. So each call of A is maintained separately over here. We should understand this, right? The first A call is different. It is going from main to A. The second A call is different. It is going from A to A. Are you getting this, right? So in the second call of A, again we'll execute first three statements. Then again it will call to A. Then again it will call to A. And it will happen again and again and again. So this should stop somewhere, right? This should stop somewhere. Again, if we don't stop this, what will happen? It will keep on executing again and again. Something like your infinite loop. If you remember, you have studied loops in your first year, right? If we don't write our conditions properly, sometimes infinite loop happens. Program doesn't stop, right? So here also in the recursion, this recursion has to stop, right? Otherwise, what will happen? Main will give call to A. A will keep on giving call to A again and again, again and again. So this has to stop. So for stopping this, we should write some terminating condition. What we should write? We should write some terminating condition. This terminating condition will help us to stop the recursion. This terminating condition will help us to stop the recursion. Correct? So, and if you don't write this terminating condition, or if you write an incorrect terminating condition, then what will happen? Then your program will keep on executing again and again, and that will cause problem for you people, right? Now let us see an example in order to understand this recursion. So what is recursion? Recursion is a phenomenon in which the function is calling itself. So a phenomenon in which function is calling itself is called as recursion. And the function is called as recursive function, and the function itself is called as recursive function. I'll give you one example here now. Okay, suppose I want to calculate factorial of a given number. A very simple example. Some of you might have learned this also. Maybe your teachers might have taken this particular topic in first year also. But let us quickly revise here today for better understanding, because the most of the curriculum in our data structure requires you to be very thorough in the concept of recursion. So let us quickly revise here. So factorial. So suppose I ask you to calculate factorial of say 5. So what is answer of factorial of 5? It is 120. How I get that 120? What is factorial of 5? Basically it is 5 multiplied by 4 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 1. So this is basically what factorial is. 5 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 1, and this basically is my factorial of 5. Okay, so excuse. So for calculating factorial of 5, what is my factorial of 4? If I closely observe, factorial of 4 for me now will be 4 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 1. Correct. This will be my factorial of 4. Correct. which will be nothing but 24 in our example. So basically, what is my factorial of 5? I can simply write my factorial of 5 as 5 multiplied by factorial of 4. It is 5 multiplied by factorial of 4. Correct? What is this part? The highlighted part. What is this highlighted part? It is nothing but factorial of 4. Correct. So what is factorial of 5? It is 5 multiplied by factorial of 4. Similarly, what will be factorial of 4? This will be 4 multiplied by factorial of 3. What will be factorial of 3? It will be 3 multiplied by factorial of 2. Are you getting this, right? So in general, what will be my factorial of n for a given number n? If I'm calculating factorial, what is factorial of n? It will be n multiplied by factorial of n minus 1. What is factorial of n? N, so this number multiplied by factorial of, what is this? This is n minus 1, right? So for 3 this is 2, for 4 this is 3. Similarly for n this will be n minus 1. So factorial of n is n minus 1. This has to stop somewhere, right? I told you that each logic should have a terminating condition, correct? So what will be terminating condition for factorial? So what is factorial of 0 in mathematics? Factorial of 0 is 1. What is factorial of 0 in mathematics? It is 1. And this is our terminating condition in recursion also. So let us quickly write a logic for this now. So we are writing a factorial logic. So I'll include stdio.h and I'll start with my main function. Correct? Here I am taking two values, a for which I want to calculate factorial and my answer variable, which will be my answer. I am writing a factorial function here and I am calculating that factorial for a number n. So this becomes my function declaration. This becomes my function declaration. Let us quickly write the body of function now. This will be int fact int n. So if the value of n is 1, sorry, if the value of n is 0, that was my terminating condition. I am going to return my answer as 1. I am going to return my answer as 1. Otherwise, if the value of n is not 0, then I am going to return my answer as n multiplied by factorial of n minus 1, which is nothing but my recursion. So this is basically my terminating condition of recursion. This is terminating condition of our recursion. And this is my recursion call. This is my recursion call. So fact, inside the fact function definition, we are giving call to fact. We are giving call to fact, right? So initially the value of n will be 5, correct? Initially value of n will be 5. So whether 5 is equal to 0? No, 5 is not equal to 0. So it will come inside. So 5 multiplied by fact of 4. So call will go to fact of 4. Whether 4 is equal to 0? No. So it will come inside. 4 multiplied by fact of 3, then fact of 2, then fact of 1, then fact of 0. That time value 1 will be returned, and that value we will be getting for fact of 1, which will do 1 multiplied by 1. That answer 1 will be returned to fact of 2, who will be calculating 2 multiplied by 1. The answer 2 will be returned to fact of 3, who will be calculating 3 multiplied by 2, that is 6. This 6th answer will be returned to the fact of 4. 4 will be calculating, and so on, and finally the answer 120 will be calculated for fact of 5, which we have to catch now in our main function. So I am taking here the input from user. So user will enter the element for which the factorial has to be calculated. I am taking that element in the form of variable a. I am taking that variable in the form of variable a, and then I am giving a call to my factorial function, and the answer will be caught in ANS variable. I am giving fact of a, and I am further printing my answer of factorial. So factorial is %d, which will be my answer. So here I am taking input a, I am compiling it, and I am executing. So let us quickly save and try to execute this particular program. I have compiled this and I'll try to run. So it is asking me enter element. I'm entering element as 5. So it is printing me answer as the factorial is 120. It is printing me the answer as factorial is 120. So how the execution happens in this case? So first I pass 5. So this 5 is coming here inside n. So it will go in the else 5 into fact of 4, then 4 into fact of 3, then 3 into fact of 2, then 2 into fact of 1, then 1 into fact of 0. In that case, return 1 will happen and all the recursion calls will go back, and finally the answer of 120 from fact of 5 will be returned to your main function. Main function will print the answer 120 and it will execute. So just to quickly summarize, in today's lecture, we have quickly revised the concept of array. We have seen the array, two-dimensional array. We have seen one small example of matrix addition. Then we have seen what is function, what are user-defined function, and how we can write our own user-defined function. We have seen one example for addition, and then we have also defined what is recursion and how we can write a recursive function. And for that we have seen one example of factorial. I'll try to share all these programs, whatever I have typed today, with you people on the Google Classroom. And I'll also try to share video of today's lecture on my YouTube. So in case if someone has missed some part due to network disconnection, they can see that part from your video. What is expected now is you have to make your own notes from this part. Okay, so array, write your own notes on array. Second, on function, one example of function, user defined function. And third is recursion and definition of recursion, and one example of factorial. So for this, if you want to watch video, you can refer the video while making your own notes. So your notebook should have these parts completed. Are you getting this? Anyone? Can anyone just unmute and let me know if the instructions are properly understood?
Yes,
Hello?
sir.
Yeah. So what all things you need to complete as a home assignment for today's lecture? You have to write your own notes for array. Then what are two-dimensional array? You can write one example of matrix addition. Second, you need to write the concept of function in your notebooks, and you need to explain user-defined functions. And third, you need to write recursion and the example of factorial. I'll be sharing the video recording of our lecture on the YouTube channel so that you can refer that also while making your own notes. Is it clear? And if you have any doubts later on also, okay, I don't see anything in the chat box as of now, uh, as far as doubt is concerned. Okay, so but later on also, if you have any doubts, you can ask me on the WhatsApp, or you can ask me through the comment section of YouTube also, wherever the video will be uploaded. So let me quickly just stop the screen sharing over here and download your attendance before we conclude for this lecture. Let me verify if the attendance is downloaded correctly. It is very important for all of you that whenever you are attending the lectures, please make sure that you are giving the name properly. So whatever format we have given, you are giving the name in that format so that it will be becoming easy for us to mark your attendance for these online sessions. So let me save your attendance. Okay, thank you all for